Okay, welcome. I'm Garry Jones. We'll just set some things out to start. To say, if I do offend you, and I may, in my talk, then I don't apologize for it, really. If I've offended you, that means you're thinking differently. And I would like you to think differently. If it's things that are not serving you well, then let's do something different. It's the only way you're going to change things. What I'd like to do to start with, first of all, is first share a value with you, and then give you a gift that I was given by a coach of the name of Jeff Rolls, who was passed it to him before that. Jeff is a coach of mine, because you shouldn't be surprised that coaches have coaches. In fact, at the back of the room is one of the most amazing coaches out there at the moment. Oh, you're all going to look over now, aren't you? And if you didn't see his presentation, then you should have. But I'm sure it'll be up on his website later. That is, ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Stephen Simpson. So let's talk about my value, first of all. Something that I use, a principle, if you will. That is A, B, C. The A stands for assume nothing. The B is believe nothing. And the C is check everything. And I want you to apply that to what I'm doing now. Whatever I say, whatever I do, is not your reality, perhaps. But do take the trouble to check it out. I was at the EXPO this time last year, and during my talk then, I mentioned that if you want to go and talk to coaches that are talking to angels, then you're privileged to do so, and off you go, because that's not me. By December, I was on a retreat in Egypt with a wonderful gentleman called Stuart Pearce, who does just that. So check it. And during my process of checking it, well, I had to question my beliefs, because something I experienced there was very, very different to what I believed before that. Now, the gift I'm going to give you, I talked about that I received from Jeff Rolls, is just this. It's something that I'd like you to do throughout the rest of this presentation, and hopefully for the rest of your life. That's how important I think this gift is. We all talk about listening. Do we really listen? Now, I deal with military personnel at sometimes, and when we want to get people's attention and come and listen to us, we shout out, "Listening!" And the question is, are you? Because it's what's known as an ambiguity. Do you listen in, or are you listening? So here's the technique. First of all, we'll do it in a physical way, and then you can repeat it in a different way. I would like you to take your two fingers like this, and then push out your tongue, and hold the end of your tongue. Okay? Now, while you've got there, pay attention to my voice. And notice also how much more you notice my body language, how my eyebrows raise, where my eyes track and train. You can take your hand off now. In the English language, we use the saying, hold your tongue. What does that mean? In fact, in Middle Ages, there was a torture weapon called the mother-in-law's tongue. Well, they put an iron cradle over people's heads to suppress the tongue. The scientific fact is that when we're thinking in our head, our tongue moves inside our mouth. The tongue is too big for the mouth to contain, and it continues to move as you're thinking. So here's the technique to continue, because you don't want to be holding your tongue while you're listening to somebody, do you? I want you to imagine that there's a ball of olive oil just behind your teeth, and keep it there gently with your tongue. If you take it away too much, the bubble's going to burst. And if you push it too hard, the bubble's going to burst too. And then all of your senses have become far more tuned. Relax your jaw a little bit too, because some people I can see is a little bit pushing it there. Well, the relaxation has to take place too. And then the funny thing is that your breathing will settle down as well. So now, Now I've got your attention, you're listening correctly. I will remind you a few times throughout the talk, because I'm sure you're going to forget, as I do on a regular basis. We are human after all. Okay. A little bit about me then, now that you're properly listening, and will remember, because that's the thing, when you're listening correctly, you'll remember what people said. Very quickly, I spent 20 years in the corporate world. I started on the shop floor. I went to a factory as a short-term 2-week job as I thought it, and left as a general manager. I was very lucky to be given the opportunities. Is that true? Well, a gentleman at the back of the room wrote a book on luck. Really, we create our own luck, and it perpetuates. When we start creating our own luck, everything comes into, in athletics, you might call it the flow. There's all sorts of words for it, really. But things happen for you, to you. I left that corporate world. In fact, I ended up putting my boss in prison. Standing for your values. I was talking to the lady earlier who asked why I was dressed this way, which is still about me. No, I'm not Scottish. I'm Welsh. But the Welsh have tartans too. Okay? Generally, when I'm wearing this, there are burning questions in others' minds, and the answer is, no, I'm not. Now, we've got that out of the way. Okay? So, the offense bit, we haven't got to the offense bit yet. If I do offend you, you're getting off the fence. I also teach martial arts. It leads me to that. The martial art I teach is not a passive martial art. I have deep respect for the likes of Aikido, Tai Chi, very much passive arts. It's about what suits you. I like the aggressive arts. I teach Muay Thai boxing. And there's an expression in that of offense is the best defense. So to create offense in my world is a good thing. It gets you confused. When you're confused, whatever you hear after that, you listen to attentively. Much like you've remembered to do by keeping your tongue behind your teeth now. I went on from there really. I'll cut the story down, but basically I ended up in coaching because I took a good look at my life to say, what did I enjoy doing in that? I got given the opportunity of going from shop floor to general manager. I enjoyed giving that opportunity to many more other people. I enjoyed developing people. Yeah. So this presentation is called The Kiss of Life. What is the kiss of life? It's an exchange of breath. But the talk I'm going to link it to is your breathing and how that links to manifesting things. I'm going to ask you a question in a second. I want to leave you pondering on that. But before I do, we liberally say in language, we use words like manifesting as if we know what they mean. I love etymology. Etymology is the study of words and where they derive from. A manifestation comes from 2 Latin words meaning manus festus. And it means to strike by hand. There's no spiritual connotations at all, originally when the word was derived. So to strike by hand. It's the end result of taking a thought or a belief and making it a reality, a physical object you can hold, feel, or experience. The question of the kiss of life is, does the earth breathe? Sorry, do you breathe, or does the earth breathe you? Now, I don't want you to get no metaphysical on me again. It's an anatomical answer to that question. We'll carry on through the talk, and your unconscious will continue to process that question. But I'll remind you that the solution is an anatomical one. It's all about how we breathe. As to, do you breathe or does the earth breathe you? Now, I want to change your state. By state, I just mean about how you feel. So when you ought to place your feet squarely on the ground, open hand, place your hands on your thighs, and with me, I want you to take a deep breath in, but through your mouth. And then out. And then in through your mouth again. And out. And the third time, when we breathe out, so breathe in, we're going to go, ah, from our heart. and then we're going to move on. When we sigh, and we do in life, when things are difficult and we've overcome them, we sigh, it means it's all over. So the state of that question, we're going to leave that in your subconscious. We've moved on from there. We're going into a new state altogether. Self-help. You're all here today in the self-help industry. Particularly in America, it has to be said more so than here. It's worth over $16 billion. Can you get over that? The fascinating, I find, thing about the self-help industry, and I thought about writing a book about it at one time and labeling it self-help and crossing out the self. Because the reality, including me, I've been involved with it. How many of you have self-help books on your bookshelves and have done sweet FA about it? They're full of exercises that all would help you, and a lot of them very similar, but you've done nothing about it. How do you know you've done nothing about it? Are you all millionaires? Are you all orgasmically happy? No. If you want to know how well you're doing with your self-help progress, have a look at your bank account. There's a direct indicator back to you. And I know money isn't everything, it really isn't. Being happy first delivers money, but being happy and money, well, I think that's okay with me. I hope it's okay with you. So within that self-help industry, how are we going to move from the self bit is the responsibility of you. That's your job. Now, I'm a coach. What's my job? I like to use two words in how I behave in the coaching industry. One, I give people permission. The permission is the resistance, the roadblocks, the voices in your head that are other people's voices, not yours. They're teachers, they're parents, the things we've been programmed with that aren't necessarily true. We're back to A, B, C. So if you were told money doesn't grow on trees, hard work gets you money, well, if that were true, in India there are people working 20 hours a day for pittance. That model doesn't work, does it? There are billionaires out there that work 2 or 3 hours a day. Hang on a minute, how does that work? So we're back to ABC. The help, permission. I remove those roadblocks for you, or rather you do. I lead you and guide you through it. The other word I use, though, is accountability. That is me as a coach. That's my individual bit of it. I hold you accountable. If you've said you're going to do something, if you're going to change, you're going to make changes, then I'm the one saying when, how, who, with, those very awkward questions. I mentioned coaches have coaches. Even I got asked a wonderful question this morning of what direction are you going in? And it creates that time for us to think. That put me on a pedestal, yeah? We're all learning all the time. While I was in the corporate world, okay, I think at times I was quite egotistical, to be honest. It does go to your head. You're a general manager of a plant, 1,100 people working for me, and I used to interview managers. By now you're gathering I'm a little bit different. One of the questions, people get used to interviews, they're even trained how to do interviews. There are standard questions. Why do you want to work for this company? And really, the answers we get are all bullshit back when you're managing, because they've been trained to do it and they've told what to answer. They've looked up your website nowadays, not when I was around. So I used to throw in a question which I'm going to give to you. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? And while you're thinking of that, I'll do the same as I used to do to them. I say, I'll tell you what I did was the hardest thing I ever did. I swam away from my kids and I left them to drown. What did you do? And that's a fact. Yeah. Now, of course, as I've said that, that's changed your thinking. We've changed state again. So what I'd like you to do is put your hands on your thighs again. Take a big, deep breath in through your mouth and out again. And a big breath in and out again. And a big breath in and out with a nice little sigh. Please come in and sit down. Or you taking some photos? Okay. So, the hardest things we ever did. Yeah, you've thought of that. Maybe you've made some pictures in your head about what I did. But it's a famous quote, or rather considered famous, from Mark Twain. And if you look it up on the internet, you can find about 20 different versions. But let's say one of those versions was, the hardest thing I ever did, I never actually did. Because sometimes it's the what ifs, the things we create in our minds, the things we're thinking about of what if the plane crashes? Perhaps if you go over to the guy from London Zoo, what if the spider bites me? What if the snake bites me? All of us get wrapped up in those thoughts of things that will never happen. And yet we've imagined them. And the same body reactions take place during that. Your body's releasing the same chemicals, whether it's reality or not. So some of the hardest things we ever did were actually completely imagined. Never mind the things that really happened to us. And people coming up and talking to me today, there's some pretty horrific things that happen to people that we deal with as coaches. Imagine things that we did. What are the stats actually involved in that? Now, if we all listen to the news and the media, we get a very different story to reality. Heart attacks. Do we see that on the news much? Not really. Statistics on heart attacks, 2.5 to 1 ratio of having a heart attack. So really, perhaps we should be spending a little bit of time thinking about preventing heart attacks. But what really grabs the media attention? Well, I mentioned some fears already. Let's talk about snakes. You can go over there and experience some snakes. Chance of death from a snake, 3.5 million to 1. Now, granted, if you're in India, maybe Australia, your stats go up a lot. But it's 3.5 million to 1. But of course, even greater news is terrorism. Chances of being caught up in a terrorist act, 9.5 million to 1. I mentioned I went to Egypt in December. Yes, we had armed guards where we went. Was there any trouble? There's nobody there. I went to all the temples, amazing. Everybody should go to Egypt. Empty. Unnecessarily. Some of the last crazy ones I use, because to be honest, it winds me up a little bit, is sharks. Now, thanks to Jaws, most of the sharks of the earth have been wiped out. They've been here for millions of years, but there are tens of thousands killed every day. It's 300 million to 1 chance of dying from a shark attack. What are we doing? So a lot of the hardest things we imagine are not only screwing ourselves up, they're screwing the earth up. That's pretty sad, really, isn't it? So I want to drop back again. Swimming away and leaving my kids to drown. Anybody that knows Wales, I mentioned I'm from Wales. I went on holiday in Wales to a place called Tywyn, between Tywyn and Aberdyfi. There are two tides that cross over there. I was playing with my kids in the waves. It's just a normal beach holiday day. About the size of this background platform here on the beach are pillboxes left over from World War II. They're basically just concrete defense bunkers. So we all know the thing about the seventh wave comes over, and yeah, sometimes they can be a bit bigger. Which one of those appeared to do? The girl with me started to really panic. She couldn't touch the bottom. Now, I'm trained in life saving, so I've been all through that. It's just no problem. In fact, in my life, I've saved 2 people's lives, albeit in rivers, not the sea. But I thought I'm comfortable with this. Got behind her, put my arm around her. Now she's really, I ended up with a black eye straight away from it. And then the boy that's with me was quite a good swimmer. I said, okay, I'll go down and test it. But he couldn't touch the bottom neither. So that freaked me out a little bit. And when I look over my shoulder, and the pillbox is this big, shit. And that's when you realize the sensory acuity that the sea's a bit rougher than you thought. So I'm trained in carrying one person back, but how the hell do you save 2 people? Nobody ever told me that. Is it even possible? So I had to make a decision. Sometimes we're left with really awkward decisions. And I chose to swim away in the belief that maybe I could save them. What's the hardest thing you ever did? I swam until I couldn't hear their voices shouting and screaming at me to come back. But do we all 3 drown, or does 1 survive? We need to change state again. Put your hands on your thighs, please. Take a deep breath in, and a breath out. And a breath in, and a breath out. And a big breath in, hold it, and breathe out with a ah. So we've sighed and let it go. Now the ABCs. There's a lady named Karen Kingston. Any people that are into Feng Shui will know Karen Kingston is a very famous Feng Shui consultant who costs a lot of money to come and visit your property and do some work with him. My wife noticed an advert in a paper. She was looking for a big farmhouse to pull consultants from all across the world to train. We applied, and she said yes. Wow. At that point, I was quite a cynic about it all, really. And she came and did some amazing rituals in our house. Now, what the hell has that got to do with manifestation? Now, Feng Shui, a lot of that is doing is clearing your clutter. But that's a house. Now, although this figure is bandied around a lot, there's a lot bandied around that in the process of a day you have 60,000 thoughts. I cannot find any scientific proof about that whatsoever. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Whether it's 60,000, 160,000, or indeed it's only 20,000. If they're negative thoughts, you're in for a rough time, aren't you? So whether your house, your head, or your heart is full of shit, there's nothing coming in any good. I don't care if you do affirmations for 30 minutes a day, but the rest of the day you're thinking negative affirmations. How do you think your life's going to go? If you can get yourself into a state of bliss, I love that word, bliss, yeah, or a state just of happiness for the majority of the day, how do you think your life's going to go then? So although we appear to be a bit disjointed, we're going through a process here that will lead you to how I explain about the art of manifestation as I see it. So one thing I'd like you to do is a bit of homework when you go home. And I say it might be a bit offensive. I want you to have a good look in your drawers when you get home. Not now, because we will get into trouble, okay? And you can't have a look into mine anyway. Have a good look in your drawers. If I learned one brilliant thing off Karen Kingston was one drawer at a time. And we could say that about our thoughts, couldn't we? One drawer at a time. I've got a 5-bedroom house. If you think, clear all the clutter from that in a day, well, I'll tell you what, you'd be there a week. Because most of it was everybody else's shit. It wasn't mine. I was burning stuff. I was like, whose is this? But it was in the drawers or cupboards or paperwork that we believe we need to keep. So look in your own drawers. Start with a physical process, but we can apply the same to our brains and indeed our hearts. Because ultimately, it's all about how we feel. So there's your homework. Beliefs that get in the way. How did I clear some of my thoughts? When I was 7-year-old, and indeed I still get them now, but very rarely, migraines. Migraines can cripple people. At 7-year-old, I remember many times being in tears, basically, from the level of pain from it. I was down in Abergavenny, a little Welsh town. My Auntie Hazel and Uncle Gwyn were emigrating to Australia. So we were down there on a celebratory party for them to go. And my Auntie Dot was a nurse. I developed a migraine. I know what to do. She gave me an aspirin. Oh. Aspirin, migraines, and Garry don't work. It really became rough then. My Auntie Hazel she died a couple of weeks, bless her, ago. She was a very, very beautiful woman, a very compassionate woman. And she took me and hugged me. And I don't know if it's true or not, because they're just memories, aren't they? And we find out very often memories aren't true quite as we thought. But it felt like the pain just disappeared. And it was wonderful. Now, I grew up in a family that didn't even touch. I think I only shook my dad's hand once. And if any of you are psychotherapists or consultants in there, shut the fuck up. Yeah? Because I don't carry any problems with that. We loved each other immensely. We just didn't touch, that's all. But as a 7-year-old, to suddenly be hugged, something very out of me, confusing, and pain disappear, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I went through a belief change. Very early on in my life. Only 7-year-old. All of these things are changing, whether emptying our drawers of things we believed we needed to keep. If I say to you, like, birthday cards, Christmas cards that you've all got, kept from people, letters from people. Have you got finance information from over 7 years ago you don't need anymore? The law only requires 7 years. We've all got loads of stuff that we don't need anymore. Some of them may be people. Some of them may be friends we don't need anymore. Some of them may be husbands or wives. Go and see Sarah Davison, the divorce coach. Okay? But we're all carrying things that we don't need to. That process is a process of letting go. Whether it's paperwork or thoughts. And really, as I like to view it in the work I do, it's a process of death. That's the ultimate letting go. Where we let go of our life. In Back to Breathing, we use the words inspiration and expiration. And you know I love words. So what does that really mean? It means to take in spirit. And to expire is to die. It's a little death. You expire. Gone. Fascinating, isn't it? And we take these words for granted. So it's a process of letting go. Now, in the industry of counseling and grief, because it is grief that we go through, there's a very recognized model, which is denial, depression, anger, and moving on. The thing is, we all get caught in different stages of that. The denial is the alcoholic that says there aren't an alcoholic. It's the crack addict that says, I'm fine with this. It's not addictive. Haven't you read it up? It's on the internet, mate. Which is an interesting thing, actually, because you look at it. Because we've got heroin addicts. But what happens when you go into hospital? Massive doses of morphine, same shit. Do you have to be weaned off it when you come out of hospital? Interesting, that, isn't it? Another belief state. But denial is powerful. And why depression is the next part of the model? Well, because that's self-realization. That's realizing maybe you are an alcoholic. Maybe you are with the wrong person. Maybe you do have a lot of negative thoughts that are holding you back. Maybe you convinced yourself that I'm fine. We all say that. How are you today, mate? How are you? Fine, 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 yeah. Jesus, I've just been made redundant. Everything's gone wrong. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Yeah, great. Self-realization, denial. The next part, anger. See, I deal a lot of that as a coach. That's another bit what I find different. Now, I want to mention a gentleman that came to me as a client. He's all right with me doing this. Obviously, confidentiality, I don't talk about clients unless they give me permission. Only once in my life as I've met another Garry. You may have noticed my Garry is spelled with 2 R's. It's a Celtic way of doing it. To be honest, it's been a bit of a pain in the ass of my life because I keep having to say, Garry, yeah, that's with 2 R's. That's with 2 R's. You know, or people looking me up, look for Garry with 1 R. So, Garry came to me. He's a famous author. Garry wrote a book called The Influence of Love and Forgiveness. And his book is about 21 years ago, his brother was murdered. His brother was shot. I won't reveal everything of his book. I would love you to read his book, please do. Basically, a gun was put in his hand as to when the person was identified that he shot his brother. And he had a choice whether to carry out the act or not. He chose not to. He went through love and influence, forgave him as an initial thing, so he thought. A couple of months later, paralyzed. Paralyzed completely. Now he recognized, really, despite what medical people were telling him, he'd never walk again and everything, that this is in my head. So went through a proper process of love and forgiveness, emptying all those beliefs and thoughts. And over a period of time, he learned to walk again and be a functional person. He's a boxing coach now. Yeah, he coaches young people. There's lots of brilliant stuff. So Garry came along to me on a weekend retreat. I do retreats in Herefordshire. We use the countryside to open people up and that. And we did this little exercise on hate. And I said, humour me, Garry. You know, you've done all this, mate. You know, you've wrote the book. You've done all this. You know this. Within 5 minutes, a mess. He hadn't processed the anger. I've said about negative emotions, but some we need to go through. Anger's not necessarily negative as long as it's not destroying people or you. It needs to come out. And then we can move on. So I've developed a model from that, using the grief model, that I think it starts with beliefs, which can be the denial. Thoughts. Then it moves to emotion. It's emotion that moves us to do something about it. And then it's action. There's a lot talked about the law of attraction. People miss that action bit in there. We all want to win the lottery, but some people come to me saying that's what they want to do. And when I ask them, have you bought a lottery ticket, sir? No. Fucking good luck with that then. Yeah. Lots of us want things, but we're not actually doing anything about achieving them. The action's the most important word. Having said that, you can do as many actions, and this is what I'm talking about, you do as many actions as you want. But if there's no room for stuff to come in, where's it going to go? So I believe, first of all, becomes the law of receiving. Letting things in. We've got to let things go so that we can let things in. Something that Karen Kingston teaches. Ladies with clothes, applies just as much to us with men with skirts. There's one thing in, one thing out. If you want to buy something new, then what's going? What haven't you worn for 6 months? Because we can all go through our wardrobe and find that. So what are the thoughts that haven't served you in the last 6 months that perhaps you should get rid of? Money doesn't grow on trees. You write down and think about all of the things that have ever been said to you over your life that are in there. They're programs that are in there, and we just don't change our own software, do we? It's all in there. When's the last time you dejunked your brain? Let's go back to some of those stories. The migraine. Well, yes, I changed my belief on migraines. 2 weeks after I changed my belief, my Auntie Hazel was diagnosed with breast cancer. So as a 7-year-old, what do you piece together there? My pain went somewhere. I was held to her breast when the pain went. Christ. It went into her, didn't it? So I have to say, until very recently, really, because it took me a long time to work that out and dig around it. When I got migraines, I was an angry monster. Don't come anywhere near me. Give me space. I just want to lie down and get rid of this. Of course, it was in there. A little 7-year-old had made that algorithm, had made up that system. It wasn't true. But it's stuck there. And I'm sure you've got lots the same as you. The swimming away from my kids to drown. Well, I did swim away. But the truth is, the girl that was in the water, she was 15-year-old, I was 19. She was my to-be stepdaughter. The boy was 13. He was my to-be stepson. Now, I swam away and I got caught in this tide that was folding over and I was being pulled further out. I started to take on water. In fact, I can remember a U2 song called A Drowning Man going through my head at the time. And it slipped to a period where I thought, this is it, but I'm actually really comfortable with it, and it felt beautiful, actually. I thought, this is it, I'm drowning, and this is where I'm going. But the way the universe works, out of the corner of my eye, I could see the boy getting out. And I thought, shit, a 13-year-old boy getting out of the water, and I'm drowning. And ultimately, I found myself on the beach, having discovered all that energy out as well. Life doesn't happen like in the movies. When you're screaming at people for help that there's a girl still stuck in the water, most people just look the other way. But luckily, 2 guys from Liverpool didn't. One ran for the Coast Guard. This is 31 years ago. We didn't have the privilege of mobile phones and everything. He ran for the Coast Guard. The other guy, we got up on the sand dunes and we could see the girl rolling over in the waves. And he said to me, I'm not a very good swimmer, but if I go back in, will you come with me? Whoa. I was just nearly drowned, mate. Of course I'll come back in. So we went in, we got her out. The kiss of life. Nobody tells you about the amount of bile you've got to deal with. Coming out front end and back end, that stench of bile. All right? But I cleared the bile, I gave her the kiss of life. Her body had forgotten how to breathe. I teach martial artists for maybe 3 years to get in the ring and fight. They're at the peak of their fitness and they forget how to breathe. They're so intent on surviving and trying to kill each other, they forget how to breathe. So sometimes we have to take over. Thankfully nowadays we've got ventilators that do that as well. She spent a couple of days in hospital and she survived as well. But I had planted images in your head and you saw different to what I was seeing and what I was communicating about. The last story, or rather the question, was the kiss of life. Do you breathe or does the earth breathe you? And the answer is the earth breathes you. We expand our lungs this way and this way. If we're doing it rightly, we've got 5 to 6 liters of air. Many people only breathe through the top. But if you're using all of it, what then happens, the atmospheric pressure, is basic physics, inside your lungs is less than the atmospheric in the earth outside of you. And the air forces itself into your lungs. Ladies and gentlemen, if you create space in your life, a manifestation takes place. You don't have to reach out and be grabbing these things. Create the space inside of you, your thoughts, your head, your home, your heart. And it's coming in. But I'll repeat again, that if your head, your heart, and your home are full of shit, nothing's coming in. Working with me. What do? The people that work with me, I run retreats in Herefordshire. I use nature. Some people that it suits, I've explained I'm also a martial artist. 3 o'clock, I'm doing a self-defense class. Yes, in this. Just to prove you can do it in every day. Classes of whatever clothing you're wearing, it can be done. The retreats in Herefordshire, we go up into the mountains. Okay. All I do, I let the environment help me create space. If you're sat on top of a mountain looking out, the world is just a mirror of you, how you're feeling, the things you're experiencing. How do I know that? He's going to hate me for this. The guy at the back of the class again as well. I met that gentleman, Stephen Simpson. We met at a Paul McKenna class. Okay, I sat next to him. I'm glad to say I know the gentleman so much now at the moment. I went there, and Paul McKenna isn't going to like me for what I'm just about to say neither. I went on a course where Paul McKenna was running about confidence. I said I offend people, but we move them on. Do you know what? Paul McKenna is amazing. I've seen and experienced amazing things that he's done. But by God, that bloody guy got up my nose. Every time I saw him, I hated him. I wanted to destroy him. That's a reflection of me. It was nothing to do with Paul McKenna. And while sat in the presence of an amazing guy, At the beginning of that course, Paul told a story about his watch. And I don't remember the exact figures, but it was something like £60,000 he'd paid for his watch, and it wasn't telling the time. And somebody had said to him, but you didn't buy it for the time, did you? I knew immediately why Paul was getting up my nose. That was my money issues. Him being flash, or anybody else flash, the things I'd been programmed with of money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard. Yeah, that was my reflection back of Paul McKenna's a flash bastard and I don't like him. But he does amazing things. That caused me to go and my coach, Jeff Rolls, Jeff, put this right for me, please. What is it about me that I'm not accepting about money? We're at the end of my time. Please, I would really welcome some questions. I'm on stand number 80. You won't be able to miss it. My wife is dressed up as an angel with bright turquoise hair. I'm a little bit more dressed down. Okay, but please come and ask me some questions. Between 3 and 3:30, though, I won't be there. I'll be doing the self-defense class in the yoga room. I hope the link of breathing and manifesting. I was going to do some more stuff as well, but I've run out of time. Please look up a gentleman named Wim Hof. I want you to study how long you can hold your breath for. Then do 30 hyperventilation breaths and see how truly long, once your body is flooded with oxygen, you can breathe without breathing. Creating space for things to magically happen in your life. Thank you so much for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful afternoon. If you remember nothing else from my talk, listen in by placing your tongue behind your teeth the next time you truly want to listen to somebody. And if you don't, then look away and walk away. We're a short life. Don't waste your time listening to somebody that has no effect on your life. Thank you very much.